Hey everyone, welcome again to another episode. Good Morning News Podcast, the first decentralized news organization. Here with me, Diego, Bear Hunter, and Hero. Hero is back. How you doing, Hero?
Guys, I am so well. My apologies for missing last week. I was on the road, and I'll tell you, when you're on the road, it's hard sometimes to coordinate. My apologies. But dude, I'm so happy to be here. I'm super stoked. Let's do it.
We missed you. Were you able to be off your phone or computer when you were on vacation?
I was, it turns out that when you spend most of your time in your phone or in your computer, when you're not at home, your family likes it when you don't have that with you. And so I was away from the keys for the large part of 4 or 5 days. I went through deep withdrawal syndromes. I'm still trying to come out of, a deep toxic shock, but I'm working hard at it. And guys, it's hard for people who love this stuff. It's really hard to be away. Like, it feels good a little bit, but it's actually really kind of hard.
I don't think you can spend any more day, huh?
No, man. No more days. When I got home back to GMN on Monday, I was just like, can I write? I was getting stories done by noon,
Those first 2 days we were done by noon. It was hilarious.
Yeah, remember, it was so quick.
I just couldn't wait to write again. And honestly, so one of the things, right, we're always talking about, getting more writers and more contributors, etc. But when I didn't write for 4 or 5, 6 days or something. And, it's like not going to the feeding, trough, not going to the well. And I just felt like so thirsty to engage, I don't know how else to really present it. But so I was like, okay, 1101. This is a story. I'm down. Let's write.
Yeah, this is amazing, because we see all these stories of people with burnouts. They can't handle it anymore. And after some days, you were full of energy to come back. This is amazing. You see that you really like it.
I love it. And it's true. Let's be honest. When you're deep in for many, many, many months, it can be, and you're at it all day long, and your brain is tired, you're kind of tired, you're still working hard anyway, you're trying to put out high quality, high level output. And then you sort of just take a few days and your brain relaxes, and it can't help but want to engage again. I don't know that it's necessarily an addict cycle, but it is it's what we do and what we love, what is it like to not do what you love for a few days and you just want to go back and do it some more,
You're absolutely right. So, Bear Hunter, why don't you give her your thoughts on the crypto markets? What's going on right now?
Oh, God. Well, prices are down. I don't know, man. It's ugly out there, but it's not. It's not just the crypto markets that are kind of in trouble. It seems to be, kind of markets globally that are getting pounded. A lot of fear out there, right? There's a lot of fear over, of course, the Russia-Ukraine situation, and then, of course, fears at home here in the United States with high inflation. We had a CPI reading last week, Thursday, of 8%, which I think we all know it's actually much higher than that.
The roof. Gas prices are insane.
Wow, in Brazil they are really expensive,
Yeah, you can pull up that oil chart right now, and it looks even crazier than the shittiest of shit coins. So, commodities are.
It's super interesting, right? Because I think that a lot of us, I'll just speak for me, thought that crypto wasn't super tied to the market fluctuations of fiat, and that it was more tied to the commodities market. But I think what we're seeing is it's actually not true. The crypto is deeply tied to fiat, and it seems to be sort of independent of commodity markets. I mean, oil and gold are at, gold's at all-time high or near again. Oil is pushing into ATH territory. And crypto is obviously way off and hasn't seen any corresponding bump, right? And
it trades with the Nasdaq. You could lay the Nasdaq chart over Bitcoin, and it's damn near identical.
That's right, and which is super surprising to me. I mean, even though I know that, it still surprises me, and I wonder what that actually means when you do a more systemic analysis of what cryptocurrency actually is.
So here's what it is, Hero. We spent we've spent the last 10 years hoping that the institutions would come to this space, right? That was the hope for everybody, or the cry for so long, that the institutions are coming. Well, now they're fucking here. And the institutions treat this place as a risk-on asset, right? Eventually, and we're seeing it now, the institutions are getting flushed back out. They don't want to be a part of this right now because they don't want to see a 90% drawdown in their books, you know. But what you're going to be left with are the settlers, right? The pioneers of this space. We're not going anywhere. But the hedge funds are gone. That's a good thing.
I mean, is that true, though? You know,
I think so.
I mean, I just wonder. I mean, like if I were to look at a Bitcoin chart for the last, I mean, I don't think a 10-year analysis of Bitcoin, or what are we at now, 12 years would be useful, or 13 years, 09, wow. But what if we looked at a 4-year chart of the NASDAQ or of the S&P, or what about like other, you know, what about like the German exchange, or, you know, in London, or down in Rio? Like, is Rio where the Brazilian exchanges? That was maybe
São Paulo. It's in São Paulo.
It's in Sao Paulo, the capital.
The capital is Brasilia, but São Paulo.
But São Paulo is the largest city.
The biggest
like
city.
New York.
Is it the financial?
Yeah.
Is that the financial hub?
Of Latin America, actually.
Latin America, period. So, guys, like, you know, I remember in college when I learned that Brasilia, I think is what we call it in America, anyway,
Brasilia,
is shaped of an airplane, right?
Yep, that's right.
Oh yeah, the shape. Yeah, and the architect that created it, there's a shape of the airplane. It's a wonderful city. I mean,
tangent. Why does every other city other than American cities have beautiful architecture and we have fucking boxes? What's up with that?
Because we're young.
Yeah, no, just the wrong idea that you're doing. Come to Brazil, go to small cities, you're gonna see there's none of them are beautiful.
Seriously, look at the rest of the world. You see these beautiful buildings all over the place, and we have giant steel boxes that are just uglier than shit.
We're trying, you know, we're trying. We are reductionist capitalists, you know.
It's minimalist.
Give me a box and give me. So like, what is, like, if we laid, you know, Bitcoin or Ethereum over the stock exchange in Sao Paulo, would that look the same as the stock exchanges that we're talking about?
So this is a good question, Hero. Actually, I don't know. I'm looking at it now. What is your ticker symbol down there, guys?
Yeah, I don't have idea, friends. There's just how the name of that?
B3.
Just it's the B3. Yeah, B3. Yeah,
B3 is our exchange. Is the only one. In America, there's a NASDAQ, a New York exchange, and some other one. But in Brazil, there's only one.
Just B3. But I don't play with
that. There are more crypto investors in Brazil, like more crypto hodlers than stock investors. You know,
I believe that. Yeah, for sure.
There is.
I'll tell you what, though, I've looked
3 million people investing in the stock market, and there is only, I think there are only 10 million people that hold crypto.
Here you can
the entire population of Brazil, that only 3 million of them are invested in the stock market.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's and here that's only happened like last 2 years ago. Before it was only like 600,000 people investing in the stock market.
That's a crazy number, dude.
And
it's crazy.
And Brazil has 220 million people. It's the population.
Yeah, most of people on B3 here is from people from outside, companies and people from outside. Yeah.
That's the second question I was going to ask. How much of it is outside money?
It's a lot of outside money, but that's the consequence of monetary policies, the wrong ones. You know, we had a hyperinflation back in the 90s, which is affecting majority of people. So people got afraid of the stock market. They don't really understand it. They don't want to go into. For the past 2 or maybe 3 years, people are teaching online. You know, if you go to YouTube, there's a bunch of content creators teaching people how to invest in stock market.
And it's something that, and I would say that's something cultural here as well. Just saving accounts was really popular for my parents and for the generation that came next, you know. So my generation, pretty much of them, they are starting to play with the stock markets now, and none of them. I have only one friend that plays with crypto, So nobody here is playing with crypto, and people are just starting with stock markets.
And then interest rates are 10% in Brazil. So if you buy bonds, government bonds, they're gonna give you like 10% a year.
You're just hoping that that your dollar or whatever doesn't lose 10% in inflation throughout that time.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard thing though.
Well, that's interesting though, right? Because if you're throwing, 10% on bonds, right? And if you're not dealing with a native currency otherwise, that's a hell of an investment as long as you're not worried about default, right? Think about it, dude. Like 10% compounded. That's crazy, dude. I'm like thinking, I better pull my money out of Cardano.
That's how they attract international investors by raising rates. It was like 3% last year. It was 3% last year. Now it's 10% to
that's crazy.
Fight inflation.
Let's get super macro, like just for fun, and we'll pretend that we're smart. So like the IMF hates that shit. So what's the IMF saying to Brazil right now?
Nothing good.
I wouldn't say so, but
probably the same thing they're telling El Salvador and every other country that's trying to de-dollarize.
Brazil is in trouble now with the Russian and Ukraine war too, because Brazil is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, soy producer. But they need fertilizers. The fertilizers come from Russia. Majority of it.
What's a fertilizer?
They used to make crops, to plant
to help them grow.
Sorry, fertilizer. Yeah.
Fertilizer,
yes.
And you got most of Brazil's fertilizer.
All of it come from Russia. All of it come from Russia. They used to have factories in Brazil, but the government shut it down. And
so
then
here
they
is
import
pretty
from
much
Russia.
Yes, here is pretty much we have the lands and we have the knowledge of how to grow crops, but we buy the seeds from how is the name of the company? The American. Exactly. We buy the seeds from them and we buy the fertilizer from Russia. We produce everything, all the food here, and we sell it to the world.
Sell to China, majority of China.
Yeah, most of them. Most of it go to China.
On Russia and China, man, to survive. Imagine that. That's really fucked up.
Fucked.
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about. Bolsonaro.
Welcome to my life.
It's so interesting, right? Because I'll tell you, I was in college in the late 90s.
It's not interesting. It's sad.
It's sad, man. It's sad. It's gonna whatever happens to Russia, it's gonna affect. It's gonna affect Brazil in a hard way. Whatever China represents, I think 45% of all the exports from Brazil.
So, guys, just to be clear, when I say interesting, that's shorthand for me.
I was just kidding you. Yeah,
but,
I was just giving you a hard time.
It's not interesting in an academic exercise. It's like, oh my God, really? Right? Because I knew that China had a super heavy footprint in South America, right? And essentially, what is their client state? It's not Chile for a long. That's not Chile. Who is their client state? Essentially, where they just do whatever they want. And they overthrow people all the time. I don't remember who it is, but whatever the case. It's not Uruguay or Paraguay. I don't know. Maybe I'm conflating sort of the Japanese legacy and I don't know, whatever, Americans. What do we know anyway? But the real question is so Brazil, you guys have a huge footprint. You're the most biodiverse ecosystem in the world by factors. You have advanced, production capacity. You have insane intellectual knowledge, but it seems like you're still dependent on these weird oligarchical, autocracies for income. I
always remember a teacher in school. He was saying, since the Portuguese came here to Brazil. In 1500s, and we've been exporting commodities. Tell me one country in the world that became a rich country exporting commodities. There's not. Colombia? No, this is not a rich country.
different commodity.
It's just yeah, yeah. But you make some people rich. You make some family, and you have some oligarchy here. These guys are rich. So if you go to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, okay, people that sell oil, they are rich, but the country is poor. It's the same in Brazil. We have been exporting commodities for 500 years since we began as a place in the world. So nobody gets rich and nobody gets developed at selling commodities. But that's what we do. Because people that rule the country, this is good for who rules the country. It's not good for the people, but who cares?
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, this is really interesting. And let's get a crypto bent, like just for fun. And so, how does Brazil reclaim its sovereignty, right? I mean, its ability to, sort of self-fund its own development? Or is the domestic market not hot enough? I mean, because my sense of Brazil was super naive, right? But there is a solid middle class, there's deep poverty, and then there's some wealth at the top, right? But for the most part, it's a middle class country. Is that not true?
It's not anymore. It used to be for last 10 years, for the last decade, but last 2 years, the poor population became bigger and poorer. Yes, it's something like 1% of population here in Brazil gets 25 to 30% of all the money in the country.
Yeah, what you say here, it was interesting. Brazil, they actually produce a lot of stuff, a lot of goods, a lot of commodities, a lot of food, whatever, a lot of meat. But there is the dollar cost. So the currency is losing value against the dollar, and everything in the world is traded in dollars. So if you are a small producer in Brazil and you're like, okay, am I going to sell to international, like to China or whatever, for dollars, or would I sell locally for local money and make less money? So people just 70 or 80% of whatever they produce, they export, they sell outside. And to keep in order with the locals, they have to raise prices, right? Even though they produce locally, they have to raise prices because of the dollar. The dollar goes up.
Everything they need to produce,
everything gets more expensive. And here's the situation.
So everything needed to produce here in Brazil comes from outside, and if it comes from outside, we have to pay in dollar, and our money is not strong against the dollar, so it's expensive to produce here.
The real has always struggled against the dollar, hasn't it?
For the last 3 years, we lost 50% of value.
Since 1998, we lost 80%.
Default. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
80%.
Yeah.
Of course, you didn't.
So for example, I was talking to Mr. Bear Hunter, and I said, okay, gonna send you some coffee from Brazil. But just to give you an example, the best coffee we produce here goes to Europe. So I remember I've been to Spain some years ago, and I found some chocolate from Brazil, and it was cheaper there than it's here. Can you believe that?
So here's a couple interesting points. One, I don't think, first of all, let me clarify, I don't think Brazil defaulted in 98, right? That was like Argentina in 95. So sorry for throwing your country under the bus. But living in a country that, the dollar is native, right? It's really hard to understand it. And the only way I get it is by talking with people in other countries. I was talking to someone in India, and they were like, it's, because of the dollar, right? It's cheaper. And because of the dollar and the way that import and export works in these countries, it's cheaper literally. And this is probably protectionism, to fly from India to Abu Dhabi to buy an iPhone and then to come back home with the iPhone than it is just to buy the phone in India, right? And
we have this with PlayStation.
It's cheaper to buy a flight to the United States, buy an iPhone, and it's going to be cheaper to buy in Brazil.
And I just and I don't
exactly.
My brain spins, right? And I'm like, and I'm only starting to understand it because I'm like, what? Hey, that's so crazy.
Hey, there was some guys on YouTube. They was okay. The PlayStation here will cost $1,000. So the guy got a ticket, went to Miami, got a PlayStation, came back, and he spent $900. So it's cheaper, and you also travel. You have some fun, this kind of stuff.
Here, do you think that could be American monetary policy that runs the dollar is the world currency? Do you think that whatever the Feds do here affect the world?
Yeah.
And let me just rephrase this phrase. Hey, hero, it's your fault that I have to go to United States to buy a PlayStation.
And so I'll just say, in a very gentle way, America works really hard to make sure that this dollar is a weapon and also sort of a cushion, and so it depends how we want to deploy it. And we use it offensively and defensively every day. And it's part of American foreign policy. And whether we want to talk about it like that or not is different, but it's true.
But let me, so people don't say sad with us. So if you live in the United States or in Europe and you come to Brazil, you're gonna have the best time of your life because hotels,
your money, you're gonna be treated like a king.
You're gonna be rich here because you go to hotels, you go to good restaurants, you go to supermarkets and buy beer and have great meals. And it's cheap.
Guys, I'll tell you, my wife, she is from the Pacific Northwest of the United States, from Seattle. And she went to Brazil when she was in her early 20s, and she can't stop talking about it. It's her favorite place in the world. We're going to get there as soon as we can. We'll come find you and hunt you down in Rio, Diego. And so we listen to this is no joke. So we listen to Bossa Nova almost every day. And so my running joke about Bossa Nova is it's the same song in a different key over and over again. And no, that's not true. My apologies, Brazilians. But yeah, it's all Girl from Ipanema, right? To a different beat. And sometimes it's the upbeat and sometimes it's the downbeat, but it's all the same. And then she's like, you're an idiot. I'm like, I know. That's true. I will say so here's a fun story. So we were traveling in Central America, right before we first got married. And we were up in the highlands for a long time. And, and when you're in the highlands of those countries, as you may know, there's not a lot of meat and you kind of live off beans and rice and stuff. And so we did that for a while. And at some point we came down to the city and the first thing we saw was a Brazilian steakhouse. And I will tell you, you've never seen two in shape Americans destroy a meat platter, like we did that day. It was phenomenal. So what's my point? No real point other than well, actually,
come here. You're gonna have fun. I take you to a steakhouse. Right? I'm not gonna eat because I'm vegetarian, but I take you to one.
Of course, you're a vegetarian.
The salad bar.
That makes so much sense,
But look, hey guys. So all of this?
Why does it make sense?
What all of this has to do with crypto?
Thank you.
We come to the executive order that Biden, sign or is going to sign it. I want you to comment about it, the executive order. Are they afraid of the dollar? What's going on?
I'm so glad, Gelfie. Thank you. I was going to make a crypto point with beef prices, but I got lost. I was literally daydreaming about that plate of meat, and I'm totally sorry. Inappropriate for Saturdays. Publisher, you've been quiet. Do you want to start with this one, or I can ramble about that order for you? But would you please save me?
I don't know, man. This has been entertaining as hell. Let's see. White House executive order. Where are we? Seemed like it was a good thing, right? It was very much anticipated to be, I don't know, the end of days for crypto, with some of the rumors that were going around Twitter there for the couple of weeks beforehand. But it seemed like, some of the language in there made me optimistic. It was kind of a shock. Things like we need America to be number one in this industry or whatever. I didn't expect that. I'm very glad to hear it. I didn't expect it. So I think regulations are coming, right? That was really the gist of the order. Was the White House has basically put a mandate out to all government agencies saying, figure this shit out, right? Learn how this stuff works and figure it out. So, well, to be determined, right, on what these different agencies are going to interpret that to mean. Gensler definitely seems to have a wild hair out for our industry. So who knows how much power this will give him.
Oh, yeah, fucking Gensler, though, right? Like, I mean, so here's the deal, right? Like, I mean, that dude understands the technology more than most, right?
He's super dangerous.
Well, but he's dangerous because he knows.
Exactly.
Right? And like,
knows too much.
But that's also like really liberating, because here's one of my big issues, like, and I think we've talked about it here before. Maybe we haven't. Sometimes I rant in my own head, but like most of this shit is a scam. And it's the founders trying to get rich and then rug or dump. And that's fine. I mean,
makes it really hard for builders like myself. I'll tell you that.
But
they've tarnished the reputation.
Legitimacy, like it's really difficult, right? And so
harder than I'll say this: it's harder to be taken seriously and legitimized in this industry than any other industry I've ever been in. Right?
Oh, plus 1,000, totally true, right? I mean, it's so bad we have our own language, right? And so, like, I mean, that's how otherized we become. I mean, talk about the science of alterity, and so, like, I find it really, I actually don't, like Gensler, if I'm having a day like today where I'm sort of just like, oh, yeah, man, I'm like, dude, go Gensler, like go bust those fuckers, like truly, right? And if I'm having normal days where I'm not so like, however I am today, I'm like a little more cautious, like, okay, well, bust him, but like, okay, go slow, but the truth is like, we get so confused, right? Because we talk about projects and we don't talk about the tech, right? I mean, because really like projects come and go, like who cares, I mean, how many 10,000 PFP projects does a planet need? And like, we don't need anymore, right?
Burn them all down. Like, fuck them. They're irrelevant, but like the tech will be here for the rest of humanity. Right. And like, I don't know what a quantum blockchain looks like, but I mean, there'll be that too. And, essentially we forget to go back to the whole point of what we're doing. It is a public ledger that cannot be erased. And what do you put on that thing? Everything you can. And so if we think about the tech, that's amazing. And Gensler, I think Gensler honestly is like, the tech's amazing, but the way we use it is terrible. And quite frankly, he's totally right. And I agree with him 1,000%. The problem is he's the head of the SEC. He's not a professor at MIT anymore, right? And so, he can, he can't take his professorial hat off to go like, yeah, you're right. The tech is like the most amazing thing ever. The way we use it is totally exploitative. But now that I have a regulatory position, I'm only going to focus on the regs and the way that people get screwed, and not like this tech is the most important thing we've done as humanity for like 400 years. And so that's my issue with Gensler. Like, I mean, he knows better, but he's in the SEC, dude. And as the head of it, he feels like he has a position where he can exercise discretion to pound where he sees fit. But the truth is, like, what are you going to pound? Terra? I mean, like, Terra's like, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, publisher, but isn't Terra one of the more decentralized ecosystems we have? Terra has gained the respect of pretty much every developer out there, right? Every Ethereum developer has nothing but good things to say about the ecosystem over there. I, for one, have never interacted with the chain, so I can't really speak to that quality or anything. But from what I understand, their stablecoin protocol is one of the most groundbreaking, innovative breakthroughs that we've had in this space in a long time. It seems to be the most reliable of all the decentralized stablecoin options out there.
More so than DAI?
Yes, more so than DAI at this point, because DAI's got like 60% backed or something like that. I probably butchered that percentage, but it's got a large percentage backed of USDC.
And
I
the
think
difference also is that DAI, you need to do some leverage. You need to borrow against your collateral in order to mint new DAI, and UST, you don't need to.
Yeah.
That's the big difference, I think, right there, Gelfi. I'm thinking about DAI, right? Is if you're doing 150% leverage, right, to get some DAI out of the vault,
UST, that's an algorithmic, that's all happening within the protocol itself at the code level, whereas DAI is very much analog, right? You still got somebody managing that contract on the back end. That's the real breakthrough there.
Well, let me actually slow down right there, because this is actually interesting, right? And so are we saying that DAI is not an algorithmically backed stablecoin?
You could use air quotes around that. It's at the time it was the best that we had, right? But now we've got better. But the cool thing, though, and I'll say this for DAI, is they have the capability to adapt, right, and change. They're not set, and they don't have to be, right? They've still got a strong team there. They could still continue to develop and implement some of these new breakthroughs that we've figured out.
So, do you think that? Okay, so we have over leveraged DAI, which is just their model, which is fine. I actually think DAI is amazing, quite frankly. But so Terra is a place where I dive in a little bit just because I'm curious, but I don't really know the ecosystem very well. But if you were to take, for example, this is interesting, right? Now I'm way off in the weeds. Could you take a UST DAI pair and make a liquidity pool on it?
Sure.
Swap, right?
Absolutely.
And what would that look like? It's kind of rhetorical, but what would that look like? Someone must have done it already.
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty of stable pairing pools out there, for sure. Yeah.
Do they ride together?
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you mean ride together?
Well, I mean, so if it's always hard for me to conceptualize. So if DAI goes, up versus the dollar, does Terra tend to also go up versus the dollar? Or can they operate independently so Terra can go down and DAI can go up?
No, they can certainly operate independently. Yeah.
But do they though?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And why?
Buy and sell pressure on those tokens.
Is it always this buy sell pressure? I mean, are we always going down to Econ 101 every time? Every time.
That's where it all comes down to: supply and demand. Buy side, sell side pressure.
Is there some sneaky thing somewhere else that I just don't understand though? I feel like sometimes that doesn't encapsulate the full market movement.
Well, it depends, right? So if you get, one of the greatest examples that I love to use is our little paper token. If you go look at that chart, it is just pure supply demand, right? There are no other outside influences that have gotten to my token. So you can really just see the pure supply and demand in action, right? You can see every buy that happens. You can see every sell that happens. So that's an example of a really pure market in its purest form, right? But then, of course, as you get bigger and you grow in market cap, you begin to get the Wall Streets of the world involved, right? And now suddenly you've got futures and options, and all that stuff begins to affect the price action outside of just the normal supply and demand part of it.
Here, guys, let me ask you a totally interesting question that I think about way too much. And so, does the sheer volume of DeFi options sort of make it so that DeFi can't really become all that it could be?
No, the volume of options on DeFi is almost non-existent. It's not even enough to move the needle. What has affected our markets more than anything, and it's why we are so goddamn correlated to the indexes, the SPY and the Nasdaq, are the futures, right? It's the CME futures. That's what drives our price action more than anything else. And that's because Wall Street's going in there and they're dropping billions of dollars, right? They figured out that they can absolutely affect the price of our markets by simply going into the CME futures market and dropping $1 billion to short it, or dropping $1 billion to go long, right? And it's all leveraged up. So they're literally pulling fucking monopoly money out of thin air, and they're moving the needle. And that's what's been happening. You can see it clear as day going all the way back to probably about May of 21, right? Is really when that you can watch that run up in 2021. That was the institutions coming in, right? They were flooding in, they were all leveraged up, going long, and then they flipped, right? And now it's been the battle of hedge funds ever since. They've just been fighting back and forth, dropping billions of dollars in the futures market and moving the needle.
Okay, so 2 questions. CME stands for
Chicago Mercantile Exchange.
That's correct. My pal Larry has a membership there like since the 60s. He's like 80 years old now. He's a great dude. Shout out, Larry. You'll never hear this, but I love you, brother. And so, true. And so when you say battle of hedge funds, right? I mean, that's essentially like bullish and bearish hedge funds, right? Smashing against each other. And the market kind of moves, in sync with those collisions, right?
Yep. And it's because there's so much money at play, right? And when you open up a leveraged $1 billion long position, that's going to move the needle, right? And all the retail traders in the world combined couldn't move the needle anywhere near what they can. So that's really what we see. Your everyday price action and things like
glad you said that, because my rant, as you all know, is like, this stuff is way more centralized than we think. And so what we're talking about right here is deeply centralized price action, right? Period. End of story.
So, well, okay, let me push back a little bit, right? Yes, you have centralized price action going on, but you have to separate the price action from the protocols, right? Just because these giant hedge funds are battling back and forth, going short and going long, has nothing to do with the 1,000 plus validators that are running the Ethereum network, right?
You completely
different.
1,000 though. I mean, that's also highly centralized. Like,
I said 1,000 plus. I don't know the exact validator count right now on the Ethereum network, but it's a lot.
I feel like the more I learn and the more time I spend, and this is not our first time diving in this deep, dark, murky pool here, that crypto is perhaps not that decentralized.
Well, here's let me put those to bed right now, Mr. Hero. Here's what separates it. The fact that I can
after that, would you?
I can go on right now and I can spin up my own Ethereum node right now. Nobody's going to stop me. And by doing that, I can now run any transaction I want through the Ethereum network through my own node. Nobody can stop me. No one can say, hey, publisher, stop doing that. It's my fucking node. No one can stop me.
Correct.
That's my pushback. That's the core of decentralization right there, right?
Well, that's all true. You're right. I mean, and you're going to use, are you using Geth? What would you use?
Oh yeah, it'd be Geth for sure. Just because it's the easiest, right? But you have options. I wouldn't have to, right? That's the beauty of it. I wouldn't have to.
Well, so you might see the trap I'm setting, right? Is it like Geth runs 70%?
I know.
So of the nodes, right?
I know, but it's shifting, Mr. Hero. It's shifting.
I know, but my point is though, like you fire up Geth, and you are also again contributing to the centralization of ETH, right? And so I don't know. Like I'm really struggling to see how the decentralization works long term, guys. Like, I mean, like Diego's about to jump through the internet and choke me. Like I can feel it. He's like, and he wants to call me a bear and all. But like, I'm the bullish dude ever on crypto, but I am like always going to critique us because I'm like, well, what are we doing really here? And as far as I can tell, is we're building shit that allows us to centralize. And I'm thinking, well, is that how we should be building? I mean, should we really be building like this long term that allows, legacy institutions to accumulate ETH to own validation networks and essentially own, proof of stake? I don't know. That's a policy choice. You can take an EIP on that. EIP 6969420 might get you there. I don't know.
I'd vote for it. It pass.
But like this is real stuff. And so like when you talk, you guys know, like I don't know anything about the tech really. Like I can kind of talk the lingo and I sort of get it, but I would never claim I really get it. Because honestly, if you can't code, you don't understand it. Like I really believe that. And so like I can say, yeah, so Geth owns or has a 70% validator or node, I mean more accurately market share, fine. And there's 4 or 5 other options and maybe there's 30 more I don't know about. But at the end of the day, like if Geth goes down, like we saw on like Optimism, perfect example, right? I mean, their Geth crashed, dude. And I mean, essentially Optimism was offline, right? And so there's another L2 that went offline. They can never again say they haven't gone offline. And then what? Are they a chain you want to build on? I love Optimism as publisher knows, but they screwed up. And, you know, they whatever happened in their coding when they did that upgrade that made that Geth, is it a fork? Would that be a fork technically, or what would it be?
Technically, no. I mean, I guess technically it is a fork, you know, if you're getting down to the nitty gritty of getting the code, copying it, and then running it over there on Optimism. But I mean, yeah, right. Technically, it's the same damn thing. It's just running on a.
Like, at the end of the day, like they also, so like they running a Geth node had downtime, right?
Their validator was down. Yep.
That's right. And so, like, why wouldn't that happen again with proof of stake when you have 70% of all of those stakers running, or all those nodes, you know, running Geth? Like, how is that not just a huge concern that nobody's talking about? Like, I just don't get it. Like, it's a huge issue, dude. And you have one bad piece of code, like line of code that sucks, that someone screws up, and 70% of the validators are toast, dude. Like that. I mean, how can that be really decentralized?
It's a fair question, partner. It's a fair question.
This is what I've worked. I mean, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, and then you can like suck up ETH, and then you can stake the hell out of it and control it that way too. And like, how is not Ethereum just subject to these huge attacks long term, right? Like, I'm struggling. Like, I mean, you guys know I'm not a maxi. I love ETH more than anything. I own more of that than anything else. But my God, like, if we don't talk about this stuff, we can't make it better. But nobody wants to talk about it, dude.
I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it all day with you. I think proof of stake has many, could have many unforeseen consequences. We don't know. The proof of stake consensus model that we are rolling out for Ethereum, granted, is much, much different than every other proof of stake consensus model that's out there.
Okay, so let's talk about that. That's a great point. So let's talk about like what is another favorite proof of stake?
Delegated proof of stake is the Cardano model.
Or Cardano, right? Which is totally, but like also like proof of stake. I mean, like there's like 10 or 12 proof of stake chains.
There are.
And so let's like, how are they different? I actually don't know. This is a real question. I'm not even being like rhetorical.
So delegated proof of stake requires the pool model, right? Where you set up these validator pools, right? And then you go and you put your native token in these pools, and then those pools are the things that are actually doing the consensus on the chain. Ethereum's proof of stake is different.
Is it though? I mean,
it is.
Isn't your 32 ETH just your pool, and you called it something different?
No, because you can stake that 32 ETH to become a validator. You don't have to do it in a pool. You can be an individual validator if you have 32 ETH.
You have to pool in Cardano, like
yes,
Ethereum. Okay.
Right. Yep, those pools are the consensus or the validators on the chain.
So is the delegation, like, this is a real question. Like, I mean, just to get back to GMN for a minute, guys, and you're very patient with our little side rants. So like with GMN last night, right? So the article was ENS, Brantley, Milligan, and, you know, the issues with he being delegated votes, and then, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, the question is like, does the delegation model in Cardano, is it similar where you have like me? So say I have 1,088, right? And I can go assign it to someone in the Cardano community to then vote on my behalf, right? Or to validate on my behalf.
You would send it to a pool, and then that pool would validate on your behalf. Yes.
Is that pool not owned by something though? Like
that pool is owned by a person. Yes. And that person, that single person, actually ends up getting the lion's share of any fees that actually what little fees do come in on those pools. They end up getting 90% of all of it, and then the state get very, very little. But like, so in the end, it's like actually like a really similar model, right? And so like, I mean, if we're going to use, I mean, whether you're talking about tokenomics or governance, right? And so in a governance model, you know, you delegate your vote to somebody else based upon their reputation, and then they vote for you, and you don't think about it again, right? And the theory is the community is more participatory because there's more voting, even though it's a more centralized voting structure. And we can't even argue that delegation is not more centralized. Like, of course it is, right? But the counter argument is it's actually maybe more decentralized because you have actual more shares voting. That's a bullshit argument, but whatever. With Cardano, same deal, right? Like, you are trusting a personality with your ADA
to go vote, how you would vote or how you would, essentially, because staking would be voting in that scenario.
Do you have
right?
to choose a validator? Do you have to delegate, or
It sounds like you
have
do, right?
Well, not necessarily. You can't. You do have the option. You can spin up your own pool, right? You can start your own pool, and you can start and put your ADA in there. But the way that the problem with that, though, is that the way that consensus model works is that it goes by pool size. So the pools that have the largest ADA staked are the ones that are most likely to get the validation reward, right? To get the ADA emission.
But hold on, how's that different than anything that happens on BTC or on Ethereum under proof of work? Isn't it the same? The more computing power you have, the more likely your odds are of getting the block, right?
Yep, exactly.
In proof of stake, the more money you have, it's likely you're going to get the reward.
Exactly. If I'm staking, 300 ETH, right? Like it's just more likely that I'm going to get that block,
Right.
I'm struggling, guys. Like
the wealthiest validators often rewarded in the system.
Real quick to Diego, like, hey pal, I know you got to run. I love you, brother. Thank you for being here. Enjoy Wreath. Oh my God, I can't even say it. ETH, Rio, ETH, whatever you guys are calling it. Christmas, whatever it is, ETH Rio. Like
Rio, yeah.
Will you please tell everybody down in ETH Rio that we love them deeply up here in North America? I'll slightly dox Gelfie. No, I won't. Truly though, like, dude, Diego, I respect you more than you know. I think you're an amazing human being. You're such a huge impact and contributor to the crypto space. And I thank you for being you.
+1 to that, my friend.
Thanks a lot, guy. It was unexpected. I don't know how to say. Just it's an honor to be here, and I've been learning a lot with you guys. And just thanks a lot.
I feel
welcome, bud.
I learned a lot from you, and it's an honor to spend space with you, man. Like, I mean that 10,000%, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thanks for it's what this kind of experience, this sharing with you guys, that's what makes me in this space, because some days are really hard, I feel like I have no energy. Yeah. And no, but every time that I have this good vibe from someone, it's what makes me going.
It's
thanks a lot for that.
Yeah,
it is.
Like, take 2 days and just like get away from keys, and like you'll just want to go and write a news story again. Like burnout feel like it's okay. Like it's fine. It happens. You're tired because you're too engaged. Like you just need to disengage for a bit. Like trust me. Holy shit, trust me. All right, brother, get out of here, man. Go enjoy E3O, dude.
Okay, friends. See you next week.
See you.
All
Cheers,
right.
friend.
Hey guys, going back to the proof of stake stuff that you guys are talking about, I think that proof of stake they scale better than proof of work, as they can more easily include a higher amount of transactions in the network. And also, I think proof of stake kind of mitigates the problem of a hacker or a malicious validator taking control of the blockchain. If you read the Ethereum 2.0 proposal thing, it's extremely and practically like expensive for someone to own a majority stake in the network. So there is virtually no incentive to try to attack the networks.
So I want to push back a little bit, Mr.
I do too,
Let me just say, so you don't need to have 51% of the network to be in control of it, right? I know that doesn't make sense, but let me go with this train of thought here.
Yeah.
I think the worry is right now you've got, let's say 3 huge powers in the crypto space, right? Those are Coinbase, Binance, and FTX. You can make the argument that they run the show here, right? They are in full control. And I think the worry for a lot of people, and I would assume this is a worry for Hero as well, is that those three exchanges are now going to have even more control over the network, right? Because clearly they're going to hold more Ethereum than anybody else, right? Than anyone can hold between those three companies or those 3 exchanges. And no one can compete with that. There's no There is no ETH whale out there that even come close to matching what those three entities have. So if you end up in a situation where you've got 33%, or let's say 32% here, 32% there, 32% there, and then 2% to the rest of us retail folks, well, that's a problem. They may not have 51% of the network, but that's a problem.
So let me hit that real quick. I mean, just to like be anti-bear or whatever the hell I am. I'm not a bear audience, just so we're clear. I'm a human. And so, right, like, so in the centralized exchanges, ETH is locked down, right? And so until the merge happens, if you have staked ETH on any centralized exchange, you can't pull it out. It's illiquid, and so, those numbers that we saw the other day that scared the hell out of us, right, they're true numbers, but they're also like misleading because we can't unstake it. Like I'll be fully honest. I have ETH staked through Coinbase, like bad hero, but also like good hero because it was pre-Lido. And I was otherwise to spend it on like illiquid JPEG. So like I needed to like stop myself somehow.
That's a great way to do it. I think it's brilliant.
That shit, so I couldn't touch it. And so, but I mean, after merge like that, theoretically, and I think it's true, will be released by the centralized exchanges for us to go do what we want with, right?
And majority of people are gonna just sell it.
They're gonna sell it, or they're gonna. I mean, if they sell it, that's awesome. So ETH crashes, and I buy a lot more, right? I mean, like Anthony Cesano, who we all know. I don't follow him too closely, but I love his recent tweets about just cracking jokes about ETH crash to 100, right? I'm like, yeah, dude, please crash to 100. Like, oh my God, can I mortgage my house 10,000 times over? But the truth is like somewhere in between, and so we're gonna get to unstake, from the centralized exchanges. Gelfi, you're right. There's going to be a lot of selling that happens right then, like for sure. And ETH is going to crash, dude. No one talks about that part either.
Look, if someone tries to attack Ethereum, a huge amount of their staked tokens would be like slashed. They attempt to manipulate the block, right?
I agree. And that's the thing, right, about the consensus mechanism and the penalization and the bonding within it, right?
So it's pretty much very, very expensive for any of these companies to like try to attack the blockchain.
Well, and so that's the question that no one's run the analysis on, right? I mean, if we're going to get serious for a quick sec, I mean, like, so when does it economically viable to attack a network, right? And like, what do the rewards look like for doing that versus, the slashes and the bonding issues that happen when you purposely do, false confirmations. I don't know that we know that yet.
So here would be my worry with the 33% would be that it's not the exchanges that are going to do something nefarious, right? They have every reason to be as honest as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
The issue is, and this is already true with our centralized exchanges, is they are a single point of failure, right, for a nefarious actor to attack. So Let's just say we get 5 years down the road, we've got the consensus model out, things have played out the way we have, or the way that we're talking here, and the exchanges have a lot of control over the network. Nothing bad's happened in this 5 years, but now a nefarious actor comes in, attacks Binance, gets into their hot wallet or their cold wallet storage, and is able to extract that 33% of the ETH. I seriously doubt that they're going to have that same skin in the game that the exchanges had, right? They're gonna try to dump that shit as much as possible, or do something even worse, right? Because now they've got 33% of the network. It could get real ugly real quick.
Can we ask some really fun questions real quick though? Like I like this. This is a game. I mean, Gelfi, like this is what happens when you're just awake all the time, is you just sit there in your brain, And so like I wonder sometimes, like, what does the Coinbase cold wallet look like? And like, I mean, do they have, like 1,000 ledgers, $100 million each on them? Like, how do they, is like, here's my real question, right? Is there something we don't know about that's like a type of institutional cold storage?
There is. Yeah, they're called vaults, right? It's the Coinbase vaults that they use.
But what is that? But at the end of the day, though, it's just going to be a private key and a public key, right?
I think what they are, it's cold storage, but it's like a multi-sig cold storage.
Yeah, I figured it must be multi-sig. I wonder how many signatures are on that thing.
That's a good question. I don't know.
So
hopefully more than one.
Oh God, I mean, like even like in our little worlds that we live in, like it's so funny, right? Like we live in the the projects I'm part of and the guilds I'm part of and stuff. I mean, we're in the tens of thousands of USD, right? Like we're not in the hundreds of thousands or the millions, and we fret over 2 to 3, 4 of 7, 5 of 9. Like, what do we do? How do you balance efficiency of paying people with security, right? And like, if I were Coinbase, I would want like 1,000 out of 1,001 to be able
for
to
sure
find a transaction, and but truthfully, it's probably like Brian fucking Armstrong and like 3 of his girlfriends, who
so, you're not. So this is actually a really interesting rabbit hole to go down. There are rumors. I don't know if you guys have heard this, and I can't confirm any of it, but there are rumors out there that when the president of El Salvador wants to buy his Bitcoin, he just sends a text message to what's his name, the strike guy.
Colin, or not Colin, but
Jack something or other.
Strike. Oh yeah, Jack. Oh, Twitter dude. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Of course, Jack Dorsey.
No, not Jack Dorsey. No, that's not what I'm thinking of.
Are you talking about Stripe, or are you talking about Lightning, or are you talking about
Strike, the Lightning app that they're using in El Salvador?
I don't know who controls.
I don't know who that is.
Lightning.
But anyways,
damn it.
Anyway, Jack Dorsey's a Twitter guy, though. You're right about that, Gelfie. Yeah. With Bitcoin Maxi, right?
Anyway, so he's basically just sending this guy a text message saying that he wants to buy Bitcoin, and then this guy goes and just buys it on Coinbase and then sends it to him.
Fucking hilarious, right? That's amazing. And so, but this is kind of like what I'm getting at, though, right? Like we have all these, mirrors of security, but they're self-delusional and self-reflective. And so, like, what does it look like if you're Coinbase and you have? So there's 10 million. Like, hopefully today we get to write about that.
Jack Mallers.
Who's Jack Mallers?
He owns the Strike payment app that runs the Lightning Network. It's just him. He built the damn app himself, and he runs the whole damn thing. And it's basically just him on his cell phone running the entire network. What it is anytime someone puts in a Bitcoin order through the Strike app, he just goes and buys that Bitcoin on Coinbase and sends it to him through his app that he built.
I love that. That's brilliant, right? Let's face it, that's brilliant.
Kind of is, but
it's brilliant. So, I mean, like mafia brilliant, but still brilliant. Well, so like truly, real question. Coinbase, publicly traded company, right? I don't own any of their stock for obvious reasons, but like, do I have if I were to go buy a share? I guess I can't buy 0.00001 share like I could of something else, but if I bought a share of Coinbase, would I have a right to inspect records to figure out who was on the multisig and how those funds are being held? I'm super curious, right? Like where's the money at, You
can certainly join you can join like an investor's call or whatever.
I just really want to know, like just generally, as a Coinbase user, I'm happy to say that I use Coinbase. I also use Binance and I use Gemini. What up, Winklevoss? But like, fine.
They have people's money, right? So when you stake at Coinbase, they probably have like a contract with you. So I don't think they can use your staked ETH there to do anything else besides staking it.
I don't know. Like, I mean, it's a good question, Gelfie. Like, I don't know. Are they like a bank where like we just pretend that they hold my money, but they really just lend it out? And then one day when I ask for it, I hope they still have some, I mean, because that's how banks work, essentially, or is there a deeper contract where like, my X amount of ETH that I have staked with them, they have to keep it in the pool and can't play around with it and then find ETH from me later. Because essentially, guys, right? Like the deep secret of banks is it's a Ponzi scheme, right? Except we, and like I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, fiat, Ponzi, we're all going to burn, like whatever. Like, I'm not that hardcore crypto. I'm like, yeah, it's the greatest thing ever. It's the next revolution, period. I don't think banks are a Ponzi scheme, like just FYI, but they are a Ponzi scheme, just FYI, right? Because there's no, like, it's not like the $2 I put in to the bank or the $2 I get out, right? It's somebody else's $2.
Yep, by definition, you're absolutely right. It technically is a Ponzi scheme.
And that's what a Ponzi scheme is, right? Except there's enough people that are participating in the system, or there's enough, churn where I get my money back every time, and there's some government backing, right? But still a Ponzi scheme.
But we've seen live like what happened in Russia. People just ran to the bank to get their money out. With the fractional reserve thing, they didn't have all the money, so they kind of had to limit people from withdrawing it. And so people just let's just buy crypto instead, and get out of the system. That's one thing, because we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know if there's going to be a hyperinflation, whatever is going to happen, and like everyone decides to get their money out of the banks. Do the banks have all the money? I don't think they do.
Definitely not.
No,
I don't think.
And I'll tell you one thing that we've seen, over the past 2 weeks as well, is an acceleration in the decline of the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency. Right? Our idea to sanction Russia with everything we had, right, to give them the harshest sanctions possible, ended up just backfiring on the U.S. and showing the rest of the world, hey, maybe you don't want to hold your treasuries in this currency, right? And other nations seem to be waking up to that.
It's a volatile asset, man.
It is trading like
I have a theory that goes up in my mind. U.S. has the power to print dollars, and the dollar gets absorbed by the market, and we see that. So last year, in 2020, when coronavirus happened, they were able to print a third of all the money, all the dollars that exist
ever existed.
Yeah, and the market is just going to observe it. Everyone is like freaking out. Okay, but what are they gonna do? Where they're gonna go? They're not gonna buy UN. They're not gonna buy lyrics. They're not gonna buy ruble. They're gonna buy dollars.
That's right.
But I think now the politicians, they are kind of worried about people not buying dollars anymore.
It was that was part of the executive order, that language was used in the order.
If they do stop buying the dollars, then we're screwed, because what's the US debt right now?
30 plus trillion.
Yeah.
And they need inflation. They need to keep printing more money in order to pay this debt, right? Because they spend every year almost $1 trillion in the military. They spend more and more and more.
Well, 800 billion on paper and X amount of billion off paper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not collecting as much on taxes to pay off this debt. And
well, the only Gelfie, which is really interesting, is we actually had our highest tax collections ever last year, right?
Oh, wow.
But the problem is our spending is just insane, right? Because
also inflation, right? It was 7%. Of course, everyone got more money in their pockets.
Well, inflation's like more recent. I mean, we've been under inflation for a bit, right? But I mean, the 7-8% stuff is pretty new. It's a huge deal though. Like, and you're so it's so astute of you, Gelfie, to think about the way that inflation works with monetary policy, because you're totally right. And the real question is Bitcoin in particular is spun as an anti-inflationary investment, right? But what we're seeing in the end is that most cryptocurrencies are, like the major ones, are pegged to dollar fluctuations, the market fluctuations, right? I mean, we started off this conversation, publisher, right, by saying if you overlaid the NASDAQ, to Bitcoin, it would essentially be a mirror. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that, but I believe you. And what does that really mean? I mean, does that mean that you're actually building a separate, independent economic system?
I honestly think that thesis still holds, right? Because I think, at least for me anyway, I've always believed, like you, that crypto is the way, right? That that in the end, this is the best technology ever, and it's going to be the thing that saves us. However, in the meantime, as the world continues to implode on itself, crypto absolutely goes down with the ship. I think the thesis for me has always been that crypto will be the thing that rises from the ashes, right? And it's going to be a painful fall down, but I think we're in the right place for the great reset, as Dalio would call it, right?
I think you're right. Ray Dalio is obviously all over that shit, and so like, I mean, are we going to see sub 1,000 ETH?
Good.
I think so. I actually think so too, to be honest, right? What about you, Gelfi? Do you see sub 1,000 ETH? Do you see Ethereum? Ethereum's not a currency, sorry. Do you see Ether going below 1,000?
I don't see that.
USD. Don't see it.
I don't see it.
Publisher, why do you see it?
Oh, I think we've just got some very terrible macro headwinds ahead of us, right? I think it's hard for me right now to look at what we've got going on in the world and be optimistic about financial markets, right? People have bigger fucking worries right now. For crying out loud, we're talking about nuclear annihilation, on a daily basis. I don't think anyone gives a shit about their Bitcoin portfolio right now. People are just scared, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think there's probably a lot more fear to come, and that's going to be bad for the U.S.'s economy. That's going to be bad for global economies.
But doesn't fear drive adoption of new technology?
I think so. I think this is just part of the process that we're going to have to go through, because, at the end of the day, what we are witnessing right now is kind of the crumbling of the old infrastructure, right? It's all very much kind of falling down around these old institutions, and they are just doing everything they can to stay relevant and stay alive.
That's a fact. You ever joke in your own minds that Swift isn't very swift, It's 2 days Swift.
Very oxymoronic, isn't it?
It's sort of like, like the Greek messenger gods, Hermes is coming, but he's coming slowly. Gelfi, so like from your perch, you are a multi-dimensional, multi-global human. Like, where do you see us going, pal?
So to be honest, I don't know if you guys ever been. I mean, Hero did. I don't know if you guys ever been to lived anywhere else outside the United States, but there is clearly a relation. The world depends on the dollar, and if United States cannot control it, cannot like take care of it, people are gonna find a new way to negotiate. So what I see now happening is China gaining lots of control in the region. They're manipulating their own currency to devaluing their own currency against the dollar, but they are buying lands all over. And they already have their own stable coin, like their own private blockchain, whatever. And what I see from now on is people accepting other types of payments. So let's say the other day I was trying to buy a car here where I live, and I text a guy, "Hey, do you take crypto?" The guy, "Yes, I do." So I see signs of people adopting this new money.
Wait a minute, slow down, Gelfi. Did you buy a car with crypto?
Dude, I pay my rent with crypto. I only buy food with dollars. To be honest, I get paid crypto. I pay my rent. My landlord takes crypto as payment.
Oh, give me a break.
I bought a car with crypto. So that's what I'm saying. People are seeing what's going on, right? So inflation is right there. People are okay. If dollar is getting crushed, and there is an alternative, censorship-resistant money, where I can definitely buy stuff. So I work for the Bankless Brazil DAO, right? And they have a different currency than I do. I use dollars on my daily life. They use reais, but we all transact with each other in crypto. We don't know what dollars is anymore. inside the DAO. We pay everyone else in crypto, and we buy stuff with crypto. You know,
I agree that the adoption is happening, Gelfi, and it's growing. It's growing exponentially, right? I think my point is that all the adoption from people like us, right, us poor folk of the world, isn't shit relative to the United States economy going down, right? If the U.S. stock market collapses, if the U.S. economy continues to decline, that's dragging every asset down with it. We can continue to trade back and forth with our silly little online magical money, but that's not going to stop it from going down in price, right? The price action will inevitably suffer from an economic collapse.
A couple things real quick, right? I mean, first of all, Gelfi, like +1 +1 +1. Holy shit, I love you. That's amazing. So like, I do still look at crypto as an anti-dollar investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though it's like largely been pegged to it by its own market forces. And so let me ask two questions. First, Gelfi, do you guys use a different token to compensate inside of Brainless Brazil? I've heard that you guys have something that's not bank that you pay with. Is that right?
No, we decided to use the bank token from the Bankless DAO as our main token, but we just lost 50% of our treasury. So we're trying to we also have Ethereum in our balance sheet, but we're trying to use stablecoin to UST or DAI to pay.
I can only dream that Bankless DAO cares about diversifying their treasury. Different topic. What up, Bankless DAO?
Yeah, it needs to preserve.
Freaking desperately, right? But like, do you do that? I mean, how do you do that at 3 cents, right? I mean, it looked like a great idea at 15 cents, but like, it's hard to do now.
So if you go down to Brazil or Argentina, which are like emerging countries, and I said it before, Brazil got more people with holding crypto than investing in the stock market right now, as Argentina does. If you go down there, try to buy something with a dollar. You can't. They rather take crypto now than dollars. Try to get your haircut. They're gonna, you take Bitcoin, you take Ethereum. Yes, I do. Here,
come on, man. Like,
I'm telling you, that's true. So we're not seeing this. We're not seeing the adoption, the mass adoption in the United States right now. In fact, United States not the number one country adopting crypto. Emerging countries are. Look at India, over 100 million people investing in crypto. Look at Brazil, over like 10 million people already. Argentina, more than half of the population already investing in crypto. So take these as examples that people are trying to be less dependent on the dollar, and that's scaring the American politicians. One thing that I see is the politicians here, they have, they don't want to rule against their own thing. They have inside informations. They make millions and millions of dollars on the stock market by just having inside informations. And back in 2014, they rule. They pass a bill that if they don't disclosure their investments, they would have to pay a fine. Guess how much that is? $200.
$1.
$200. So Nancy Pelosi, for example, she makes $250,000 a year.
Nancy Pelosi's husband owns the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, you can just end the sentence there.
That's actually true. Yeah, that's true.
That's like, do you need to look any further into American corruption and politics than just that? Like, you can seriously just stop the sentence there and just be done with it. Like,
yeah. So the thing that I'm trying to say here is there is the dollar manipulation, not just a dollar, but any other country. Politicians' manipulation is what's gonna bring people to crypto. People already know that every politician is out there does some stupid shit. Like they're gonna print as much money as they can. They're gonna corrupt and whatever. And it's not just in America. It's in Brazil. It's in every other country. And you know why? Because they have the power to control finance. They have the power to control the financial system. Once they lose that power, then I think that's how we're not gonna like look
that
at
gets to my
crypto
point though, Gelfie, right? Because
anymore.
if the American, let's go through that thought process. What does that mean, right? If America loses its power as the world reserve currency, what does that mean? Well, that means the American economy has just fucking collapsed, right? And that means the global economy has collapsed right alongside it.
Where do you go? Are you gonna be holding
my
dollars?
point is that you
hold on.
You go to crypto.
That's a little bit dramatic, though, Pub. Like,
why?
There are another
you think if
10 nations who don't have the dominant world currency, right?
But it's global trade, Hero. It all comes down to global trade and being denominated in U.S. dollars, or at least backing in U.S. dollars.
And I'm being double advocacy right now, like for fun, right? But like totally. But just like say you're China, right? Number 2, last time I checked, maybe. And
if the U.S. is China's number 1 trade partner, right? If the U.S. goes down, if the economy collapses, who's China going to trade with? Nobody. Now their economy collapses, right? It is a domino effect across the board.
I agree with you completely. But I guess my question or my interjection was more about, what does it mean to be a dominant currency by yourself, right? And like,
that's a good question.
That's what I mean. Like, you can't. So like we talk about the US dollar being, the de facto currency of trade, which it is. And, the petrodollar being what it is. And, the amount of infrastructure it takes US military to support that. Fine. But like, it's not like we're like the US is alone in this equation, right? It literally takes the rest of the world to make this thing function. And so like, for me, the question is more like, what does it look like when, the dollar, doesn't become the dominant global monetary paradigm, but what does it mean to live in a system where trade is now not dependent on a singular center, right? And it becomes more multipolar.
I think my point here, guys, was that if that situation were to play out, let's say the dollar goes to 0, right? You are going to have a period of time where shit is going to get really dark, really ugly, and really hard for people, right? That could be a year, that could be 2 years, that could be a decade. There will be another side to it, right? We will come out on the other side of it. There will be survivors of something like that. And we don't know what, the new world currency could be fucking Bitcoin for all we know. The point is there in a decline like that, there is inevitably going to be a period of time where there is a lot of pain that is going to be inescapable. I don't care where you live.
All true. Maybe true. Wow, Gelfie, did you expect a podcast like this today? This has been
it was the longest podcast ever. Produced by GMN,
but we have been like all over the board, man. I mean, I don't know, Pub. Like, I'm struggling to argue with you, but I'm struggling to agree with you. You know what I mean? And I think it's my lack of understanding about what it really means to be, the currency of the world.
I'll tell you what I see from being, I am younger than you guys are, but not too younger. But when I talk to someone that is only like 18 years old or 20 years old, ask them, what's your expectation to buy yourself a home or to buy yourself whatever? And, it seems like it's getting harder and harder for someone to kind of free themselves. Seems like they are enslaved to the system. And as when you're 18 years old, what are you going to do?
I've spent my entire adult life,
right,
making peace with the fact that I will work until I'm dead and that there is no retirement in my future. It wasn't until I found crypto that I finally began to have hope.
Exactly the same for me. Like I was just like, okay, what am I gonna do? So if I wanted to go to college here, well, I have to borrow $100,000 to pay over, in 20 years. And then if I want to buy a house, I have to borrow now in Seattle $1 million or $800,000 to buy a house. And when I'm 70, okay, then I paid off everything and I'm done. So I when people realize that they are enslaved to the system and things are just getting more and more expensive, and you look at crypto, oh, here's another chance, a different, a parallel financial system. It's borderless. You can do whatever. It's different. So the older generation, the boomers, they're not gonna regulate this. The newer people, the millennials, they are the future generation. They are the ones that are going to adopt crypto. So it might take 5-10 years, but that's the real thing here. Boomers, old people, they're gonna stay behind with their dollars account, inflating over and over. But the newer generation, they're gonna just trade in crypto, right? That's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
There is no way for someone in 10 years, like for your kids, Hero, when they grow up, or my kids when they grow up, there's no way that they're gonna go, okay, I'm not buying this with Bitcoin. I'm not buying this with Ethereum, or I'm not buying this whatever. You know what I mean? So whenever they're like 20, if they work for remotely, or if they work for any company online, they're gonna get paid in crypto. That's for sure. And I think that's how it's gonna go. If Ethereum and Bitcoin does their what's been promised, that they're going to go up in price because like Bitcoin only 21 million, Ethereum is going to be deflationary, and it's just the reality. It's the new reality, actually. So honestly, governments all over the world are a little bit scared to lose control of their financial system. It's not just US, it's everywhere.
Yeah, but Gelpa, this is like my point from a few weeks ago, right? Like, won't they just buy all the ETH and control it again?
So that's the point. So developers, everyone has thought about it, and they are building something to be resistant to nation state attacks, especially Ethereum. If you go to vitalik.ca blog, there is entire blog post, like it's a long blog talking about it. There is some mathematical equations. Whatever they're trying to achieve is to be state nation resistance, because they can also create all the money and try to buy all the crypto. But I don't think that's going to be possible. What I mean. Like, I don't know that like math helps you there, right? Because it's just like, again, to go back to supply and demand. Like, I am Saudi Arabia. I have, 5 trillion, to spend, and I'm going to go buy all the Ethereum. I've done it twice today. This is an editing. So we did an editing test. Our illustrious editor, True Cat, and I did an editing test for the Writers Guild at Bankless DAO. And one of the tricks we did is we threw Ethereum in as like being the name of a token, right? Which obviously it's not, but I've caught myself up twice now today. Couldn't Saudi Arabia buy all the Ether available for their 5 trillion and essentially just then own it? No, I think that if they want to inject 5 trillion into the system, the price of Ether is just gonna go up. I don't think people are just gonna sell all their ETH for one wallet. Ledger is I get public. It. But over time, right? I mean, and it happens over 1,000 wallets or 10,000 wallets. But over time, that's the thing. Ether is not limit to like Bitcoin to 20 million, 21 million. Ether is not a limit. It's always going to be.
Well, I mean, if the pipe dream comes true, it's going to be deflationary, right? And that, you can make the argument that's even worse. Now you're reducing the supply, right? And so, it's actually worse because that's exactly right. That's where I'm going, Pup, right? And so, if we're activating deflationary pressure on Ethereum by virtue of the merge, and then the later developments that we talked about on the Ethereum roadmap, the holdings only get more concentrated over time, right? And they become less decentralized over time. I mean, I'm going to beat this thing until I figure it out. Guys, the only reason I talk about this all the time is because I'm still confused about it, right? And so the only way that I learn stuff is to either talk about it until I get it,
or to write about it. And I haven't really found the right angle to write about it from yet. And so I just like on these podcasts, Gelfie, I'm sorry, friend. I'm just like constantly going centralized. Cause like for me, my brain goes, that's where it's going to go, in the absence of some EIP I can't foresee, or what do we really need? Guys, what we really need is like some super dope tech, right? Like some kind of insane ZK rollup that allows us to stake like 0.1 ETH, a piece, but also have the same security that we'd have, through these other, consensus mechanisms we talk about. I mean, that's really the gold standard, right? Is like we all can stake from our houses with no real bottom limit on what we have to stake to be a legitimate validator,
There are 300,000 validators on the Ethereum network. Ethereum 2.0, 300,000. If you compare that to Cardano is only 2,000.
But Cardano is highly centralized, and we know that, right? And so, like, that's why Publisher and C Double like bash me about owning ADA, right? It's also not functional. Like, there's no DApp you can actually use on it. Different story, right? But like, I don't know. Like, is that actually true though? I mean, if we have 10, million ETH staked, on Beacon, how could you have 300,000 validators? Or are we talking about proof of work validators too?
Proof of work validators too.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like where I'm thinking like long term, like maybe proof of work is a better consensus mechanism. And I keep on like thinking about this. Like, I feel like in some ways we're rushing to this greening of the blockchain, but maybe like we shouldn't be. And maybe like it's just okay to use a bunch of energy to create new economies. And we shouldn't.
I think that's a very well said, my friend. I couldn't agree more. I think we are throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, right?
Like proof of work is really good.
It is good.
It's something special.
Decentralized, but there could be a problem. Like for example, Bitcoin. If I have an ASIC here in my house. It consumes like 3,000 watts. It's a lot of power, but they're gonna be. I make Bitcoin by validating the chain, but there's gonna be a point. The chain cannot be sustained by fees only. If there's no more Bitcoin being created, how the chain is going to be sustained? How everyone is going to be paying these miners? Because Bitcoin incentivizes you to hold it, not to spend it, not to transfer. And if you look today, compare Ethereum and Bitcoin, Ethereum is generating, $30 million a week, and Bitcoin is only generating $500,000 a week. So that's a huge, huge difference there. That's why I think the Ethereum mechanism of creating more Ethereum, but also burning them helps to balance, the supply. So there's always going to be new supply coming in, but also the price of Ethereum is going to go up mathematically. Saying,
but like some of these moments, right? Like when we burn more than we produce, right? I mean then we mint, and that minting is the wrong word. What's the right word for that?
No, minting's the right word.
So
is that right?
Look, I am on the if you go to ultrasound.money website, you can actually simulate the merge, how it's going to be like. So today, because there is less demand for ETH, right? There is, the gas, the Ethereum, the gas went down dramatically this past
That's
days.
Crazy. Dude, I minted some shit for $26 in GUI yesterday.
So when that happens, more ETH is created. So right now is inflation is about 3.8% on the Ethereum. But after the merge, the way is right now is going to be minus 0.3%, almost flat. So that's how we're gonna go. See, the Ethereum is still gonna be created, but less than what it is today. It
feels like we've gone back and forth here a little bit, right? It feels like we've said that token inflation is bad, but then token deflation is bad. I don't know. I don't know if there's a good answer there, honestly.
Well, I think, so like there is so much juice here, Gelfie and Pub. Like because one of the things that I have not been able to understand yet is like, so, Bitcoin, is it like, how many halves does it take you to get to zero? And the answer is infinity, right? Because you can't have yourself away to something, and so like, does Bitcoin eventually, like, is it impossible to get 21 million Bitcoin? Like, can you never get there? And it strikes me that that's true, but I don't know the math. But can you never mint that 21 millionth Bitcoin?
Eventually, you'll run out of decimals, right? Eventually, you'll get to a point where you can no longer have any more, and it's like what 120 years or something like that. That's what the math comes out to. I was going to ask you.
So, what's the number? I mean,
it's roughly 100 years.
Okay, so then at that point, right? Like, what happens to? I mean, in publishing, I went through this when I was trying to understand the merge, right? Like, what happens to, the Ethereum, essentially, like, what happens to the pre-merge chain, right? Like, how does that continue to be amberized? Is the kind of way I think about blockchains, right? Is there just like the more validations that happen over time, the deeper they become encased in this sort of like, hardened gel, but like once, the proof of, because I would think, right? Of course, the vested interests, I'm thinking out loud totally now. But like at some point, your incentive to run, ASIC mining machines are like really small unless you own a bunch of Bitcoin, right? And then doesn't it at that point just become sort of another oligarchy or oligopoly might be a better term?
I'm not sure I follow. I kind of got lost there for a second. I
wasn't really clear in my head. That's why I was thinking out loud. But I didn't have clear thoughts, like for real, So it was a soup trying to grab some words from. But essentially, what I'm asking though in the end is like, so in 100 years, right, when we can't mine any more Bitcoin because it's run its course, right? First of all, I'm not quite clear that you can mint that last one. I'm just not sure you can, but maybe you can. And at that point, like, what is the network incentive to keep the proof of work system operational? If you can't extract any more value, you're just protecting your value you've already accumulated, right? And then how do you, at that point, does the blockchain stop? Like, and you're just like revalidating previous transactions? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
I think most Bitcoiners will tell you that they'll burn that bridge when they get there. Most of them will just kick that can down the road and not talk about this.
It's like, I think 5 generations down the road, but like for real, like what does it look like?
I think the answer is going to inevitably, none of them will admit this, but the answer inevitably has to be to raise the cap, right? You've got to make more Bitcoin at that point. Right? That's the only option.
But is there is there a consensus mechanism within the Bitcoin community to allow them to do that? Or is the way the algorithm is written,
sort of, it's nothing
in the algorithm? Is Bitcoin open source?
Yeah. So how they did right? the most recent update was the miners would signal, right? They would signal for, what was that? The Taproot update?
Yeah.
They would put like a little green square in their little fucking block hash. And that was the signal from that miner that they were cool with the update. Right. And so whenever they had over 50% or whatever the number was of the miners signaling that they were cool with it, then the developers rolled out the new update.
Isn't that really a soft fork?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it would be, to raise the cap as well.
The first update before it, the miners didn't want to go through, right? And the developers the users and developers okay, if you don't want to go through, we're going to do it anyway. So they had to.
Well, that was the block wars, wasn't it?
Guys, this is like such rich terrain. Oh my God, Gelfi, can we run this podcast for like the next 5 hours? Send us send us some wine. We're gonna start drinking at some point, but like this is
taking a page out of Rogan's playbook now, boys.
We're running a 9-hour
therapy session.
Some joints and some PBRs. I don't even drink enough to know what beer is anymore.
Maybe we can invite someone else to join our podcast next time. I don't know.
Sure.
Someone that likes to talk too. to be honestly, we
gotta get our editor in here. Let's get Katrina in here next time.
This is the wrong time. She's dead asleep in Australia.
Oh shit! You're right.
From Australia or UK?
Yeah, no, True Cat's in Australia.
Oh,
And so
okay,
she
that's
is
a
one day ahead of us.
bad. She's like 18 hours ahead of us. 18, 19
Exactly.
hours
I
ahead
always
of us.
say that she's one day ahead minus 5 hours, and so like, yeah. I mean, Gelfi, this is your show, pal. So however you want to run this thing, like we're here. And obviously Publisher and I can talk about nothing for the rest of our lives, and, and I'm happy like saying dumb stuff all the time. I don't really care.
I've just sent you over on Discord a link to all of these questions that you have about proof of stake. It's a long reading, but take a look, take your time. There's a lot of stuff there that you can learn about it. I don't even know everything about it, but it's very, very cool, like the way Vitalik puts it. Take a look, and we can discuss in the future.
I will. I will. You gotta remember.
Also, there is a book that I read back in 2018, but a friend of mine he read in 2016. That's when he started investing in crypto. The book is called The Sovereign Individual. Have you ever read it?
I haven't read it, but I've heard it referenced a number of times.
So The Sovereign Individual was a book written in 1997, 1998, before the dot-com bubble. And it talks about crypto. It talks about the information era, but it goes all the way back in history, explains how bad money is always replaced by good money. And if you go back in history, it's true. And we are at the phase where we're seeing which one is the bad money and which one is the good money. So eventually, that's what's going to happen. The good money is going to replace the bad money. But he goes even further, talking about what's going to happen to nation states and so on. Though it's a good book. Everyone.
But couldn't you also say that the good money eventually becomes the bad money over time?
Yeah, so another money is going to be better than the one that we know. Like,
so could you make the argument then that we're heading down that road already with Ethereum, right? Couldn't you make the argument that it's happening exponentially faster with our cryptocurrencies, and that our cryptocurrencies could be quickly becoming the bad money, even though they started out as the good money?
Yep. That's for sure. So we'll take a look at the. If you go back in, before 70s, when the dollar was backed up by gold, it was good money, right? Then it became fiat money. Now it's not good anymore. It's the bad money. And which one is better? Crypto, in our minds, crypto is better right now, but not for everyone yet. But
and maybe not 10 years from now, right?
Crypto is going to be better, but who knows if there's a better technology that is even better than crypto,
If there's one thing I've learned, Mr. Gelfi, there's always a bigger fish out there.
Exactly. So the better money is always going to replace the old money. That's been, from ever since the money exists, it's always been like that. So it's always going to be like that. Bad money is always going to be replaced. So it's a good read. Read that book. It's gonna blow your mind, and we can talk about it eventually.
I'll do it. I love more fodder. God, what a great conversation, guys! An hour 40, Gelfi.
Okay, I think it's time to go, guys.
For this thing, But what a fun way to spend my morning. Gelfi morning, Publishers, afternoon, mid-afternoon, early afternoon.
It's morning. I still haven't finished my coffee, and it's cold.
Fair.
Fair enough.
Any closing thoughts, friends? Gelfi? God, I mean, how about you plug us? Like, what is the reason why people want to, since we literally didn't talk about Good Morning News at all for the last hour and 40 minutes.
I mentioned our paper token at some point, but that's
we did get
there's a plug.
Back to my confusion about tokenomics. Gelfi, why should someone join Good Morning News?
Look, Good Morning News is the true decentralized Web3 project. I mean, people in the Good Morning News are very, very aligned towards decentralization. Even though we've talked here, there is some stuff that say they are decentralized, but they're not, in fact. But Good Morning News is actually a decentralized news organization and publisher,
or at least trying to be.
Yeah,
let's add that disclaimer.
That's the goal.
We will always try to be.
We are very aligned to that goal. And publisher told me the other day that, he told me once that the final goal is to be a truly media decentralized company kind of thing. So that's our goal. So join us and enjoy the ride. I think that's it.
Buy the ticket, take the ride. Hunter S. Thompson. Let's end it there. Beautiful.
All right. Cool, guys. See you next time. Thank you very much. Before we end, Hero, why don't you do that disclosure? Because I don't want people to buy stuff because they just told them to.
Listeners, just so we're clear, anything you've heard here today is not financial advice. It is merely for informative or educational purposes. If you believe anything we say, I deeply recommend that you spend time in a dark room and consider your options for going forward. I would recommend reading more things. Love, Hero.